Let's get a little more perspective now on Joe Biden's priorities once he takes office. We're joined now from New York by Gregory Daco, chief US Economist at Oxford Economics. Gregory, welcome to the show. It seems the markets brace themselves for a Biden win and for this transition. Is that what you're seeing, and do you think it'll last if Trump continues resisting the results?
Well, I think we have to take a broader perspective when it comes to the market reaction. We have an economy that is at a critical juncture right now, an economy that is facing a slowdown in economic momentum and a deterioration in the health situation. So this morning we got some rather good news in terms of a potential vaccine that's being developed, but that won't be available until sometime in the middle of next year on a wide basis. That's really going to be key in determining the future path of markets, how strong the economy is as it approaches the end of 21, and also how strong the health solution is to this health crisis.
I wonder what sectors you think are struggling the most and will most immediately require Joe Biden's attention, and how he should address those.
Well, I think if we take a broad look at the economy today, we're seeing that we're in the midst of expiring fiscal aid. The support to the economy has diminished quite greatly. We're seeing much less fiscal support to households across the country. We're seeing much less support to small businesses across the country, and we're seeing state and local governments facing quite dire difficulties in terms of their budgets. That means that the sectors that are most exposed to consumer spending on services, the sectors that are most exposed to small business activity, and the sectors that are dependent to some extent on state and local activity are going to be the ones that are the most susceptible to this slowdown. Other sectors like healthcare and housing, as we've seen, are doing rather better.
Joe Biden seems to have done something quite rare, which is unseating an incumbent. Oftentimes, voters vote on issues like the economy. Was that at play here?
I think it was very much at play. If you look at the broad situation with the COVID crisis, you had some unprecedented shocks to the economy. The number of people losing their jobs topped 22 million in April. We had a partial recovery of those jobs, but only we're still 10 million fewer than we had pre-COVID. We still have a shock to GDP that it is quite consequent at 3.5%. So overall, the recovery has been partial. It was strong in the first part, but it has slowed quite a bit. And I think that influenced how people voted because their wallets in the end weren't as secure as they were pre-COVID crisis.
The former vice president has been pushing lawmakers in Capitol Hill to pass another stimulus bill. They're now back in session. How likely do you think it is that something will get passed and that Donald Trump, as a lame duck president, effectively will sign it?
I think the odds of an imminent fiscal package that is quite consequent are not that elevated. I still hope that Congress will manage to pass some form of stimulus bill before the end of the year in this lame duck session, but we have to consider the fact that in the wake of this election loss, President Trump may be resistant to providing additional stimulus to the economy, even though it would be critical at this juncture to provide additional assistance to households that have been negatively impacted by this crisis, to small businesses, and to state and local governments. So I think the odds are rather low, lower than I would like to see, but there is still some hope at the end of the tunnel that we may see some funding for some of these critically needed sectors.
Donald Trump appears to be on his way out. What happens to U.S. trade policies in dealing with China, post-Brexit UK? No doubt America first goes away with Trump, but do you think global investors are expecting Obama 2.0, if you will, under Joe Biden? And also, might there be some sort of lingering Trump effect that could be irreversible?
Well, I think that Joe Biden, if he is to lead, will likely lead with a Republican Senate, which means that he will have to collaborate with Republicans to pass any part of his fiscal agenda. What he can do alone is using executive powers, and we know that from the Trump experience that he can use that on the trade front. But let's not forget that Biden isn't necessarily a pure free trader. So while there might be increased policy certainty, which is certainly very good for businesses, as well as more multilateralism, we have to be conscious that there won't necessarily be a complete and sudden rollback of all tariffs. Relationships may be better with our trading partners and our allies, but it's going to take some time before we see a full reversal of any of the tariffs that have been imposed under the Trump administration.
Gregory Daco from Oxford Economics, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.